Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about air conditioning. Whether you're van life, off-grid, prepper, getting ready for hurricane season, camping, RVing, tailgating, everyone wants to be cool because it's really hot outside. So we're going to talk about different setups that you can use depending upon what your scenario is. I bought this unit out of my own money from Beaver because it's got some interesting features, but what we're going to talk about is kind of applicable to any kind of portable unit. Okay, let's go. So the first thing to know is that portable units like this are heat pumps, and really any window AC unit, a $100 unit from Walmart, is a heat pump. It takes heat from one side and pushes it out the other side, and then cold air kind of is created on the one end. So it's really important to realize that you have to have a dividing line between the hot side and the cold side. There are advertisements online showing people with units like this sitting on a picnic table blowing at them. And that does work, but the cold bubble space is about as big as this table, if even that, because the hot air that's coming out this way is just going to loop back around and hit you depending on which way the wind is blowing. So putting this on a picnic table and sitting in front of it makes very little sense. Basically, any unit you get that's kind of like this will come with a vent pipe and a vent shroud. And this will allow you to direct either the cold air coming out or the hot air that's being discharged away from you. So just like dryer vent, and I can put this on the hot side or the cold side. So if I was in a tent, I could have this outside my tent blowing cold air into my tent. Or the reverse, I could have this inside my tent blowing cold air that way and then discharging the hot air through this out the other direction. But that separation is really, really, really important, and having a physical divider between the two sides is really important. So if you were tailgating or something like that and you have a pop-up canopy, you really need to have a tarp or something that this is going through to divide the hot side from the cold side. The other really important thing is insulation. If you're in a van life or a cabin or a deer blind or a tiny house or whatever, making sure that your space is insulated so that way you're not just blowing cold air into your cabin and then it's going right out through cracks and stuff like that. Obviously, that's a lot more difficult to do in a tent, but you get the idea. So insulating your cracks, sealing off any air leaks or whatever will make this significantly more efficient. So let's talk about power draw. So the ratings of air conditioners are in BTUs, British thermal units, and you'll see units between 3,500, 4,500, and 5,000 BTUs. A typical window AC unit from Walmart is usually 5,000 BTUs. This is 4,500, and then the Bouge RV that I reviewed a couple weeks ago is a 3,500. Well, what does that mean? How cold will that get? Well, that's a really complicated question. If you're in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's 120 degrees outside, and you're trying to cool your house or your van down to 60, that thing is never gonna stop running because it's trying to move like a 60-degree differential of heat from one side to the other. And that's a really big ask. If you're trying to go from 100 degrees outside to 80 degrees inside, that's only a 20-degree differential, and that's much more doable. So the BTU is kind of the horsepower of the unit's ability to move from heat from one side to the other. And it also affects how much power that thing's gonna pull. Another really important factor regarding BTUs is the size of the space that you're trying to cool. You know, a 5,000 BTU unit really is going to top out about 120, 150 square feet. If you try to use this in a space even any bigger than that, it's just never going to turn off. So there are some caveats in there, but just keep that in mind. It's sort of a rule of thumb that, you know, every 5,000 BTUs is worth about 100 to 150 square feet in the real world. Certainly there are exceptions. If your house is exceptionally well insulated, you might be able to push that a little bit. But if you've got a cabin or an RV or something like that, just I use that as a pretty good kind of rule of thumb. This little portable AC unit that I've got is not going to chill down my house. Speaking of power, I just mentioned this is a 4,500 BTU unit, and it draws around 400 watts while it's running. If you're trying to cool from 120 degrees to 60 degrees, it's never going to turn off. So it's going to pull 400 watts forever. If you have a differential that's a little smaller, this thing will eventually turn off when the inside temperature gets to where you want it to be, and then kick on as needed. So let's talk about how you could power this if you don't have regular wall power. The reason why I bought this particular unit is because it's dual voltage. It runs on a 120 volt AC wall plug, and it runs on 24 volt DC directly. I was expecting it to use less power on the DC side than it did on the AC side, but it really didn't. It was both about 400 watts, and that's very intriguing. The difference is if you were to use an inverter on a 24 volt battery to get to AC, is you're going to lose 10 to 15% battery efficiency through the inverter. So if you're a fan of 24 volts like I am, and you have a great big 24 volt battery like I do, you can just clamp this thing straight on and rock and roll. Let me show you how this can work in a small scale. So this is a plastic ammo can tackle box gearbox from Amazon. I'll put a link down below. And it perfectly fits two 12 volt, 50 amp mini batteries. I got these from WattCycle. You can chain them together and make 24 volts. So this is a little battery pack that I can clamp those alligator clips straight onto here and run this thing for at least 3 hours, if not more, depending on how hard I'm trying to push it. This costs like under 300 bucks for this setup. This was about $320. This is about $300. So for $600, I can have a couple of hours of portable cold that I can take anywhere, pick this up and move this pretty easily. That's pretty neat. Compare the price of that against the EcoFlow Wave 3 and the battery pack that they sell for it. Now let's say I want to take that a step further and I want to run this thing for a longer period of time. Since I'm going straight DC with no inverter, adding solar becomes really easy. So I can put a regular MPPT charge controller on the top of this box. This unit will do both 12 and 24 volts natively. Get some solar panels off of Craigslist or some folding solar panels, jack in here to recharge the batteries. And while the sun is out, 400 watts on solar is really not that, difficult to do. So I could be running this thing continuously as long as I'm getting sun, and then I've got several hours at night after the sun goes down. And by that point, my cabin or van or whatever is probably already pretty cold, so it's not going to be running all that frequently at night. Pretty neat deal, huh? Let's say you didn't want to build a system, you didn't want to mess around with that, or you wanted more capacity. Well, you can get a prefab system that's got a bigger battery and an inverter built into it. So this is an Oupes Exis 2400. So you've got 2,200 watt hours worth of battery inside here. So that will run this thing for about 6 hours at full blast, but it should taper down, you know, after your van or your cabin comes down to temp. And you've got solar input in this. So now I've got a portable system that I can just run on the AC, put my folding solar panels into the back, and I can keep this thing going. So pretty neat deal. So for a van life or a camping situation, I've got a purely portable option that's really inexpensive. If I've got an emergency situation where I'm trying to keep a room cool, you can go into something bigger. So interesting product. The flexibility of being able to go DC or AC makes it really, really, really interesting and gives you some lower cost options if you're willing to connect a couple of wires together. That little ammo can box is literally one wire to link the two batteries together. Or you can buy a 24 volt battery and be done with it. Clamp this thing straight on and you're done. I hope this was interesting, gave you some food for thought. I'll put some links down below. Like I said, I bought this Vector AC out of my own money. I have no affiliation with them. My testing on it's worked out pretty well, so it's a neat item. They go out of stock pretty fast, so if you're interested, make sure you kind of keep an eye on it or set up email alerts or something like that. Thanks, everybody. Put a comment down below and let me know what you think. Thanks.